You are looking live at the Shoe, the site of the 111th meeting between Ohio State and Michigan. We're counting you down to kickoff, literally. Keep your eye on the Speedway countdown clock as we take you right up to national coverage. Welcome to the Road to the Big Game pregame show here on ABC 22, brought to you by Speedway. I'm Eric Elkin. We'll bring you right up to kickoff between 6th-ranked Ohio State and Michigan. And today I'm joined by Donnie Evage, an 07 Wayne alum, also made his name at Ohio State on special teams from 2007 to 2011. You've got the rings, Donnie. You've got the gold pants on. What are the emotions going through your mind right now?
I got the adrenaline rush right now, just knowing it's game day and our Buckeyes are about to take the field. This is the game, man. We have this game circled on our calendar year-round.
Put this rivalry into words briefly. What is this like?
It's do or die. You know, Coach Earl Bruce always talks to us before the games, like I mentioned last year. And if you don't win this game, you have problems. If you win it, you can be the victor all year long.
Now, Donnie, I spent the past 3 seasons covering the Civil War between Oregon and Oregon State. The players there really don't give you much in terms of sound bites throughout the week. They're all from out of state, and they all say that this game is more about the fans. Well, that is not the case here in this rivalry.
Whatever you do in this game is immortalized forever. You know, if you go for 3 touchdowns or you have however many tackles or you have however many sacks, everybody's going to remember this for really forever.
At least for me, our regular season ended after Indiana. This is a huge game for us every year. It makes or breaks our season.
I do remember one time when I was real young that I couldn't understand it, but my mother grabbed me and said, we got to go run an errand or something. I looked like she was out of her mind. And we went to some outdoor area. It was an outdoor like mall, and they're playing the game over the loudspeakers. And I'll never forget that as long as I live.
It's a great little anecdote from Urban Meyer. Let's look at the game by the numbers. Michigan leads this rivalry all time, but it's one that has been dominated by Ohio State of late, with the Bucks winning 10 of the last 12. OSU, of course, won the thriller last year on Tyvis Powell's interception. This will be the 97th consecutive year the game will be played, and Ohio State hasn't lost in Columbus since 2000. Now, Donnie, this is an extremely important game for both sides. If Michigan wins, they become bowl eligible. But of course, for Ohio State, the college football playoff is huge for this game. If they lose, they can forget about any chance of being in the college football playoff. Here's a look at this week's rankings. Ohio State is outside of the top 4 right now at number 6. But remember, the Bucks will be in next week's Big Ten championship game. The Big 12 doesn't have one, and Alabama and Mississippi State can't both be SEC champs. So the door is still very much open for Ohio State. So I'll pose the question this way, Donnie. Right now, Ohio State at number 6, as we just showed you. Do you think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country right now?
Talent-wise, of course we are, but I feel like the poll is justified to a certain degree. I feel like we could be number 5 ahead of TCU, because TCU only beat Kansas by 4 points, and that was later in the seasons. But I tell you what, if we beat Michigan today, which I believe we will, and we win the Big Ten championship, we are definitely a playoff team, top 4.
TCU won on Thursday night on Thanksgiving over Texas. That's one of the teams ahead of them right now. But first things first, Ohio State won't be talking college football playoff if it doesn't win today. Throughout the show, we'll bring you a few players to watch for the Buckeyes when they take the field against the Wolverines. James Ryder is live at the Shoe to talk about one of our players to watch, brought to you by Hollywood Gaming, Dayton Raceway. Hi, James.
Hey Eric, what better way to start than with the role that people have been talking about since the moment Urban Meyer set foot on campus? And that, of course, is the role of the halfback, or as it's more commonly referred to, the Percy Harvin role, trying to find that right dynamic player to fill that spot. Now, the Buckeyes thought they had that with Dontre Wilson. That is until he got hurt. Middletown grad Jalen Marshall stepped in very nicely for that role. In the last 2 games, he's got 4 receiving touchdowns, and over the last 4 weeks, he's got even more dynamic plays. However, 2 weeks ago, he had a little bit of fumbleitis, something he had to atone for last week against Indiana.
Played up to the ability of the H-back role. You know, I felt like he said, he didn't lose confidence in me, and I just wanted to go out there and basically just prove to him that I could still be that, primary H-back in the offense.
There's a lot of cool things that our age gets to do, and I think that he suits everything that we ask him to do there very well. I mean, he's a strong kid, he's fast, and he can do anything that you ask him to do.
A big part of how Ohio State does today and the rest of the season will boil down to how Marshall does in that H-back role. If he has a big game, it bodes well for the Buckeyes. Now, if he struggles, it could mean trouble for OSU. For now, from Columbus, I'm James Ryder, ABC 22 News.
Thanks a lot, James. I think a lot of people are expecting a big day out of Jalen Marshall today. Still to come on the road to the big game, brought to you by Speedway. Remember when this guy was playing for Centerville? We'll have an in-depth look at Michael Bennett's development into a future NFL talent. Plus, JT Barrett's gone from unknown to Heisman candidate in a matter of months. How that came to be, next. But first, let's head back to the shoe with our tailgate pass. It's brought to you by Speedway. And keep an eye on that countdown clock as well. We're almost 20 minutes away from kickoff between Ohio State and Michigan.
He's a Heisman candidate.
J.T. Barrett.
Welcome back to the road to the big game, brought to you by Speedway. Eric Elkin alongside Donnie Evage. I don't think many people saw that highlight reel coming this season. It was supposed to be Braxton Miller's encore. Instead, it's turned into JT Barrett's opening act. And he's another one of our players to watch today, brought to you by Hollywood Gaming Dayton Raceway. The numbers are record-breaking for JT Barrett. Literally, he's responsible for a school record 42 touchdowns this season, and he's already set school records this year for touchdown passes with 33 of them and total offense with more than 3,500 yards. He also holds the longest touchdown run and single-game rushing yards by an Ohio State quarterback. So, Donnie, if I had told you back in late August that Barrett would put up these kind of numbers, you would have called me crazy, right?
I would have, yes. I didn't see this coming. Unfortunately, Braxton Miller got hurt, but with the depth that we have at Ohio State, we're able to just reload and make things happen.
What surprised you most about his maturation? I mean, everyone remembers that Virginia Tech game when, to be blunt, he looked bad. Yeah. And so did the entire offensive line, the entire offense, really. What's impressed you most about his maturation into the level that he's playing at right now?
His leadership ability. Anytime you have a tough game like that at home in a night game, LeBron James is in the building, the stars are out. You take a loss like that and you're able to move on and make progress game in and game out. That's what a leader is about.
It seems like the forgotten man out of all this, which is crazy to say, is Braxton Miller. The question was asked to Urban Meyer back in late September, who's your starting quarterback next year when Braxton is back? Braxton has already said that he is coming back next year to play his senior season at Ohio State. That question was a little bit tongue-in-cheek at the time. Urban Meyer didn't hesitate at the time to say it's Braxton Miller. But Donnie, that discussion now is really starting to gain some traction. I know it doesn't affect today's game or what happens going forward this season with the college football playoff if the Buckeyes are able to get to that Final Four national championship picture. But what do you do if you're Urban Meyer next year when you have JT Barrett as a redshirt freshman playing the way that he's playing, and you've got Braxton Miller back for 1 year of eligibility?
I feel like a player should never lose their starting position due to injury. I'm a Braxton Miller supporter all the way. I'm a JT Barrett supporter. Buckeye Nation, we're in a great spot. We have two amazing players, both Heisman candidates on the same team. So I would not want to be Urban Meyer right now, especially coming next year. But it's hard to take away Braxton Miller's, two-time Big Ten Player of the Year. And another thing to remember, guys, is that I don't think we've ever had this many weapons on a Buckeye team, from receivers to running backs, having two tight ends. I feel like if Braxton Miller would be on this team right now playing healthy, he would have broke his own records.
The other topic that's been brought up too about Braxton Miller is he's not ready for the NFL draft right now, hence why he talked about coming back. People are talking about him too potentially playing a different position if he comes back, maybe keeping JT Barrett at the quarterback position, then using Miller maybe in that H-back role or at running back, a lot of different positions. You talked about all the weapons they have. Do you think Braxton, I know you're a Wayne guy, I know you know Braxton, I know you haven't necessarily talked to him about this specifically, but do you think Braxton as a person might accept that role if it comes to that?
Braxton, he's an athlete. So wherever you put him on the field, he can play.
Right.
I have not talked to Braxton personally about this, but my gut feeling is Braxton wants to play quarterback. That's been his position all his life, and he's a competitor. He's a Wayne Warrior, and he's also a warrior in real life, so he's going to compete his butt off and want that starting spot at quarterback.
It won't affect what happens today, but it's a really interesting topic going forward. What will happen between JT Barrett and Braxton Miller? You just saw Urban Meyer in that picture you mentioned. He has a tough decision.
Very much so.
But not something they have to worry about today. Coming up next, we talk another hometown kid, Michael Bennett, and something about him you may not remember, which makes what he's accomplished that much more impressive. But first, let's head back to the shoe with our tailgate pass. It's brought to you by Speedway. And remember to keep an eye on the Speedway countdown clock. We're only 15 minutes away from national coverage as the shoe starts to fill up.
We already want to beat them really badly, but now it just raises the stakes. You can't like mess around with them like we did last year. You have to go out there and you got to prove your point.
Michael Bennett also wants to go out with a winning record against that team up north. A win today gives him a 3-1 career record. But before he ever donned the scarlet and gray, he wore black and gold. James Ryder joins us live once again from outside of Ohio Stadium. And Bennett is another one of our players to watch today, brought to you by Hollywood Gaming Dayton Raceway. James?
I went back to where it all started this week. I sat down with Ron Ullery, Michael Bennett's high school football coach, and we talked about Bennett's progression and how we ended up where we are now, 7 years after Bennett's freshman year at Centerville.
In high school, I would describe him as kind of eventually the total package, where he was a charismatic young man, an extremely intelligent, extremely caring, very respectful, very courteous young man.
And obviously on the field, Michael Bennett was as advertised. Explosive, talented, but yet he didn't play defensive line until his senior year of high school.
Not probably, but without a doubt, the best high school offensive lineman at any level of high school football that I've ever seen. I've never seen an offensive lineman at that level even close to as good as Michael was.
But even earning a scholarship to Ohio State, Bennett was oblivious to how good he really was. Playing 2 ways as a senior, Bennett was one of the first players invited to the Army All-American Bowl.
This game is a huge honor, especially since I didn't really expect anything like this. Even with the scholarship offers, I didn't think I was an All-American.
What's amazing is how good Bennett is and was on the defensive side of the ball, and if he chose to play on offense, he could have been even more exceptional.
I often joked with him and the people at Ohio State, they put him at center. He's all Big Ten right now and All-American, a first-round draft pick. But Michael wanted to play defense, and he's not doing a bad job there.
It's a breath of fresh air, too, hearing Bennett talk at any point in his career of how he became who he is.
My parents got me here. My coaches got me here. It's just, I did some parts, but they put me in that position.
Bennett's growth in high school and college mirror one another. At Centerville, they saw his potential and pushed him early on to be great.
When Michael was a freshman, he was practicing with the varsity and playing with the freshman team. And I think Michael would admit there were times during his freshman year where he wasn't certain he wanted to play this game.
But he matured and decided this is what he wanted to do. Then at Ohio State, he committed to play for Jim Tressel, only to see him leave and eventually Urban Meyer come in with a new staff.
It took Michael a while to adapt to the new way of doing things, and he struggled. He would be the first one to probably tell you he struggled at first with when Coach Meyer came in and his new staff with how they were doing things, and once he jumped on board with them, I think his career just took off.
The current Buckeye is primed to play in the NFL next year, and when he does, he'll join many other Centerville greats to reach the game's highest level. But Bennett might be the best.
If I picked an all-time Centerville team, which I've never did, Michael would definitely be one of my top picks. He would probably be a starter on both sides of the ball because he is one of the best defensive linemen ever play here, and he's also one of the best offensive linemen. Now he's the best offensive lineman ever play at Centerville, without a doubt.
Kind of crazy to hear those words. The best offensive lineman ever to play at Centerville, so it's almost what could have been, but he's also excelling on the defensive side, and Ullery added that anything Bennett does, he'll be exceptional because of the type of kid that he is. In Columbus, I'm James Ryder, ABC 22 News.
Thanks a lot, James. I think one of the more interesting things we heard out of James's story that people might not remember or realize is that Bennett really was an offensive guy in high school. You heard Ron Ullery say he was one of the best offensive linemen he's ever seen. Fast forward a few years, and Bennett is one of the best defensive lines in all of college football and now a soon-to-be NFL player. So, Donnie, I pose this to you. How impressive is that? I think people think offensive, defensive line, they just think big guys. It's kind of the same thing. It's interchangeable. but there's a lot of difference in technique there between those two positions. How impressive is that?
It's very impressive. And I would say Bennett has 3 qualities about him. It's his talent, it's his dedication, and it's his intelligence. You can't go from being an offensive player to a defensive player and excel the way he has without having the intelligence, because talent will only get you so far. Talent is never enough, but he's put in the work and he's excelled, and I'm very, very proud of him.
You're a Miami Valley guy. How much pride is there, too, to see Miami Valley guys doing that well?
A ton of pride. I think everybody at home watching the show right now would agree that Dayton has some of the best talent and athletes in the country.
Michigan's O-line has a lot more than Bennett to worry about. Joey Bosa has been an absolute freak this year. He's another one of our players to watch today, brought to you by Hollywood Gaming Dayton Raceway. Donnie, what do you compare this guy to? He reminds me a lot of J.J. Watt.
It's funny you say J.J. Watt, because I would totally agree with you, Eric, but I would also say he reminds me of Johnny Simon. You know, he has a motor. Johnny, just like Bosa, they give 110% every play, every snap, and he opposes so much of a threat to anybody that wants to block him one-on-one.
11.5 sacks on the year for Joey Bosa, 18 tackles for loss. Also this week was named a Bednarik Trophy finalist for the top defensive player. That will be announced at the College Football Awards show in Orlando in early December. One of 3 guys along with Scooby Wright at Arizona, and as well as a Clemson defensive player. It's almost time for kickoff between Ohio State and that team up north. Coming up next, Donnie's going to give us his keys to the game for the Buckeyes, both on offense and defense. Plus, most importantly, his prediction. But first, let's head back to the shoe with our tailgate pass. It's brought to you by Speedway. Keep your eye on that clock. We are almost 5 minutes to go until we bring you up to national coverage between number 6 Ohio State and that team up north.
It's the game. It's that was kind of installed in me when I first got here, and it's kind of been that way since the whole way.
And that's a Florida guy saying that. Welcome back to the road to the big game. It's brought to you by Speedway. Keep your eye on that countdown clock. I'm Eric Elkin alongside former Buckeye, former Wayne Warrior, Donnie Evage. From kickoff, we're only a few minutes away from kickoff, Donnie. We both think if the Buckeyes take care of their own keys, they should be okay in this game. So time for you to give us your keys to the game. It's brought to you by Bo Townsend Ford. Donnie, let's start on offense. 3 keys for Ohio State offensively.
Okay, the first key is to protect the football. In today's game, it's all about winning the turnover margin. Fumbles are unacceptable, and we cannot throw any interceptions. The second key to the game is going to be the offensive line. They have to dominate. If we win the war up front, our run game is going to be successful. We're going to be able to eat up the clock and dominate the flow of the game. Now, the third key to the game is going to be J.T. Barrett's decision making. He's going to have to know when to throw out of the pocket and when to run and use his legs. And he's a talented guy. We've seen it all year long. If he makes the right decisions, the right reads, the game is going to be, honestly, I think, a blowout.
Yeah, he was a little bit off maybe last week. Missed a couple of open receivers, threw 2 interceptions. One of those not his fault. It was tip ball off a receiver's hand, but maybe a little bit off for his standards last week. We'll see if he has a big bounce back game. All right, on the other side of the football, 3 keys defensively for the Buckeyes.
Okay, the defensive line's aggressiveness. We got Bosa, we got Bennett. We have a list of guys that can get back into that backfield and disrupt Gardner and the running backs. We do that, we set the tone, we're the aggressors. It's going to be a great game. The second key for the defensive side is the secondary cannot get caught sleeping. And I say it just like that because Michigan is desperate.
Right.
They're playing for their head coach, and they're playing just to be bowl eligible, like you mentioned earlier.
Right.
So watch out for the trick plays and watch out for the deep balls because it's going to come. The third key to success and to win the game, and the final one, is to have no mental errors as a defensive unit. We just talked about it. If our heads are in the game, we read our keys, we have outside support with the linebackers, the defensive line goes to the right gaps. We're gonna dominate, Eric. It's gonna be fun to watch.
I like the confidence in dominate. So much confidence that makes sense to segue into our prediction time. Last year, Donnie, I'm going to throw you under the bus here a little bit.
Okay.
You were a bit off, but so was everyone else. You predicted a blowout, and that game was anything but that. It came down to that 2-point conversion. Obviously, Tyvis Powell's big interception that saved the game for Ohio State and saved their season at the time with those national championship hopes alive. So we're going to give you another chance this year around to see if you can get a little bit closer. Donnie's game prediction is brought to you by Town & Country Furniture. Donnie, what you got?
Okay, I'm gonna try and redeem myself this year, and I have Ohio State winning 52-17. And I say that confidently. We put up a lot of points pretty much each and every game. Look at Michigan State. You know, we put up a lot of points there. I feel like with it being a home game, the seniors' last game at the shoe, their parents are going to be waiting for them before the game. Emotions are going to be so high. We know what this game means, 57-12. And real quick, Eric, I want to say an early happy birthday to Braxton Miller. Buckeye fans, make sure you let him know happy birthday on his social networks.
Yeah, I know. Well, it seems like, again, the forgotten guy out of all this. The guy was a two-time Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, but JT Barrett has just played so well. We also haven't talked too much about Brady Hoke. Could be his last game. How much do you think that plays into it for Michigan? How much are they going to be playing for him?
Oh, they're going to play for him without a doubt. They're going to give it everything that they have. You know, if I would have known, and it's a touchy subject, if it would have been Trustle's last game, the game before, potentially, it was my last, I would have gave everything I have for Coach Trustle. So the Michigan players are feeling it right now. They're going to give it all they have. But watch out for the Buckeyes, because we don't care if it's his last game or not. We're coming in to win in the shoe.
All right, we're going back out to the shoe. Time for national coverage between Ohio State and Michigan. Enjoy the game.